The last sliver of twilight clung to the peaks of the Whisperwind Mountains, painting the sky in hues of lavender and deep rose, before surrendering to the indigo embrace of night. Below, nestled in the valley, where the Silverstream River sang its endless lullaby, lay the village of Oakhaven. Here, life moved with the gentle rhythm of the seasons, marked by the turning of the miller's wheel and the soft glow of hearth fires against the deepening gloom. In a small moss-roofed cottage perched at the edge of the Whispering Woods, Elara was being tucked into her bed. The air inside was warm with the scent of pine and chamomile, a comforting blanket against the cool night air that often carried the faint, distant calls of nightjars. Her grandmother, Nana Willow, a woman whose face was a map of kind wrinkles and whose eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 sunsets, smoothed the quilt over Elara's shoulders. "There now, little sprout," Nana Willow murmured, her voice like the rustle of autumn leaves. "Time for dreams to take flight." Elara snuggled deeper, her small hands clutching her favorite worn plush rabbit, Barnaby. "Will you tell me a story tonight, Nana? A story, about why the Whis?" she asked, her voice a soft, hopeful whisper itself. Nana Willow chuckled, a sound like wind chimes. "Always about the Whis, isn't it? You have a special ear for them, Elara, more than most." She settled into the worn armchair beside the bed, the firelight dancing in her silver hair. "Very well, tonight, let's talk about the first whispers." Elara's eyes, the color of moss after a spring rain, widened in anticipation. She loved these stories, not just for the magic they contained, but for the way Nana Willow told them, making the ancient tales feel as real and present as the crackling fire. "Long, long ago," Nana Willow began, her voice dropping to a storytelling cadence, before even the oldest oak in the Whispering Woods was a sapling, before the Silverstream carved its winding path, this valley was a place of wild, untamed silence. The mountains were jagged teeth against the sky, and the land lay barren, waiting. There were no songs, no laughter, no gentle breezes to stir the leaves. For Elara imagined it, a world without sound, and shivered, despite the warmth of her bed. But then Nana Willow continued. From the very heart of the silence, a stir began. Not a sound, not yet, but a feeling. A longing for beauty, for life, for connection. And from this longing the first Whis formed. They were not seen, not touched, but felt, like the first faint stir of breath in a newborn world. These were the old Whis, the ancient ones. They drifted through the silence, carrying the seeds of possibility. They whispered to the earth, "Awaken." And where their unseen voices touched, the first grasses unfurled, emerald green against the gray. They whispered to the rocks, "Flow," and the silver stream began its journey, a ribbon of pure water descending from the mountain springs. They whispered to the air, "Sing," and the wind, born from their breath, began to hum through the nascent forests. "The Whis," Nana Willow explained, "are the unseen architects of our world, the gentle guardians of balance. They are the sighs of the wind through the pines, the murmur of the river over smooth stones, the soft brush of a moth's wing in the twilight. They are the stories the world tells itself, and they are the magic that makes things grow, that guides lost travelers, that brings the dawn. They have no form, Elara, no eyes to see or hands to touch. But they are everywhere. You feel them in the sudden warmth of the sun on a cloudy day, or the unexpected scent of wildflowers carried on a breeze. They are the good luck that finds its way to your doorstep, the quiet comfort when you are sad. They are the spirit of kindness, the essence of hope. And here in Oakhaven, Nana Willow said, her gaze sweeping around the cozy room, the Whis are especially strong. They watch over us, they tend to our harvests, they keep the river pure for our fishing boats. They are why our valley is so vibrant, why our apples are the sweetest, and why the Whispering Woods, though deep and ancient, never feel truly threatening. But how do they do it, Nana? Elara asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. If they don't have hands, Nana Willow smiled. They do it with their essence, little one, with their enchanting. Imagine a sculptor, Elara, who doesn't use tools, but simply wills the clay into shape with their heart. The Whis are like that. They weave the fabric of magic with their desires for goodness and growth. When a seed needs coaxing from the soil, a Whis will hum a gentle tune beneath the earth. When a lost lamb needs finding, a Whis, they communicate through feelings, through intuition, Have you ever felt a sudden urge to look up, and there's a shooting star, or felt a quiet certainty about something, even when you had no reason to know? That could be a whiz, offering a gentle nudge, a subtle guidance. Elara thought about it. She often felt those nudges. Like the time she found a lost baby bird in the garden, or knew exactly which mushroom patch held the best bounty. She'd always thought it was just her being observant, but now. Are there many Whis, Nana? She asked. Oh, countless, like the stars in the sky, Nana Willow affirmed. Each with their own gentle purpose, their own unique song in the grand symphony of the world. But there is a special Whis, Elara, a guiding Whis that is thought to watch specifically over Oakhaven. Some call it the Heart Whis or the Elder Whis. It is the core of their presence here, the one that ensures the balance of our valley. Nana Willow paused, her gaze distant, as if listening to something beyond the walls of the cottage. For generations, the people of Oakhaven have lived in harmony with the Whis. We offer them our gratitude through quiet moments of appreciation, through caring for the land, through kindness to one another, and in return, they bless us with abundance and peace. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the distant murmur of the silver stream. Elara felt a deep sense of peace, a feeling that the world was right and protected. The Whis were a constant, a benevolent presence woven into the very fabric of her home. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to shift. And it was subtle at first, barely noticeable, like a breath held just a moment too long. Elara, with her special ear for the Whis, was often the first to sense these changes. The usually vibrant wildflowers in her garden, which she carefully tended, seemed a little less brilliant, their petals not quite as velvety. The apples on the orchard trees, usually plump and rosy by midsummer, were slightly smaller, their skins a touch duller. The silver stream, which usually sang with a cheerful gurgle, sometimes sounded a little quieter, its surface occasionally disturbed by an unexplained stillness. The changes were too small for most adults to notice. Farmers might grumble about a slightly less bountiful harvest, attributing it to a late frost or a dry spell. Millers might notice the river's flow was a fraction less vigorous, blaming the mountain snowmelt. But Elara felt it deeper. She felt it in the way the air sometimes tasted, a subtle tang of something missing, a warmth that wasn't quite there. She would often sit by the old gnarled willow tree by the riverbank, her favorite spot, where the Whis always felt strongest. Here, the leaves would usually rustle with a myriad of unseen presences, a symphony of gentle whispers. But lately the rustling seemed hesitant, almost sad. Sometimes, she thought she heard a faint, discordant note amidst the usual harmony, like a single violin playing a mournful tune in an otherwise joyful orchestra. One afternoon, while helping Nana Willow gather herbs in the whispering woods, Elara noticed the usually abundant moon-petal flowers, whose petals shimmered with a soft internal light at dusk, were fewer, and their glow was muted. Nana, Elara said, holding up a listless moon petal. They don't feel as bright as they used to. Nana Willow took the flower, turning it gently in her hand. Her brow furrowed, a flicker of concern in her eyes before she smoothed it away. Perhaps the sun hasn't been strong enough for them, little sprout, or maybe they are just resting. But Elara saw the slight tremble in her grandmother's hand, a sign that Nana Willow knew more than she let on. That night, the whispers from the wind outside Elara's window felt different. They weren't the usual comforting lullaby that drifted through the valley. They were restless, agitated, like a swarm of fireflies trying to find their way in the dark. Elara lay awake for a long time, listening, her heart thrumming with a strange mix of curiosity and unease. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Nana Willow, who slept in the next room. Padding silently to the window, she pushed open the wooden shutters. The cool night air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and distant pine. She leaned out, letting the breeze caress her face, trying to discern the meaning in the wind's chaotic murmurs. This wasn't the gentle guidance of the Whis she knew. This was a frantic dance, a worried flutter. She closed her eyes, trying to open her special ear even wider, to truly listen beyond the sound of the wind. She focused on the feeling, the subtle energy that Nana Willow spoke of. And then, she felt it. A distinct presence not diffused and everywhere but concentrated, almost desperate. It was a single, strong pulse within the cacophony, like a beacon flashing urgently in the dark. It was the Elder Whis, She was sure of it, the heart Whis of Oakhaven. But its presence wasn't comforting. It felt diminished, faint, dotty-ganan, and it was sending out a clear, undeniable feeling of distress. Not a whisper of good fortune, but a cry for help. Elara opened her eyes, startled. The feeling was so strong, so clear, it was almost like a voice speaking directly into her mind. Trouble, darkness, fading. She looked out into the night. The moon, usually a brilliant pearl in the velvet sky, was veiled by a thin haze, its light diffused and weak. The whispering woods stood dark and impenetrable, but tonight they seemed to hum with an unfamiliar tension. The distressed feeling from the elder Whis seemed to emanate from deeper within the woods, beyond the familiar paths, towards the shadowy heart of the ancient trees. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer of light, barely brighter than a firefly, seemed to pulse there, drawing her gaze. Elara felt a sudden, undeniable pull, a sense of urgency that settled deep in her bones. The Whis, her beloved unseen guardians, were in trouble. And for some reason, they were reaching out to share. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. She, a small girl from Oakhaven, was being called upon by the very magic of her world. Her small hand instinctively reached for Barnaby, clutching him tight. The whispers outside intensified, becoming a tangled chorus of concern and faint hope. The single, insistent pulse from the elder Whis grew stronger, a silent plea that echoed in her heart. Something was deeply wrong in the whispering woods, and the magic that nourished Oakhaven was fading. Elara knew with a certainty that transcended mere thought that she could not ignore the call. The gentle magic of her valley, the very essence of the Whis, depended on it. The single insistent pulse from the elder Whis grew stronger, a silent plea that echoed in her heart. Something was deeply wrong in the whispering woods, and the magic that nourished Oakhaven was fading. Elara knew, with a certainty that transcended mere thought, that she could not ignore the call. The gentle magic of her valley, the very essence of the Whis, depended on it. With a deep, steadying breath, Elara gently disentangled herself from Barnaby's warm, sleepy embrace. The little creature stirred, blinking his large, luminous eyes up at her, a soft, questioning purr rumbling in his chest. "It's all right, little friend," she whispered, stroking his downy head. "But we must go. The Whis calls." Barnaby, sensing the shift in her mood, the quiet resolve that hummed beneath her skin like a low-frequency hum, immediately perked up. He hopped from the bed, his tiny paws making no sound on the woven rush mat, and nudged her ankle, his eyes alight with newfound alertness. He was a creature of the whispering woods himself, attuned to its ebb and flow, and he too felt the unsettling stillness creeping in. Elara moved with a quiet purpose, her hands finding familiar items in the dim light of her cottage. First, her whisperer's satchel, made of soft cured moss hide, adorned with tiny shimmering beetle wings that caught what little light there was. Into it went a small polished river stone, smooth and cool to the touch, imbued with a fragment of Oakhaven's calming magic, a whisperer's comfort. Next, a pouch of dried lumina berries, tiny globes of concentrated starlight that offered sustenance and a faint glow. A coil of spun moonsilk rope, impossibly strong and light, followed. Finally, she took her most precious tool, the whispering lantern. It wasn't a lantern that held a flame, but one crafted from a hollowed-out, fossilized glow root, its inner surface lined with a mosaic of captured firefly wings. When gently tapped, it didn't ignite, but he hummed, drawing in ambient magic and amplifying it into a soft, steady luminescence, a beacon for finding paths where light rarely touched. She paused at her window, pushing aside the curtain of woven willow withes. Oakhaven slept, nestled in the valley, like a jewel in a velvet pouch. The familiar glow of the hearthlight, the communal fire that burned perpetually in the village square, seemed a little dimmer tonight, its warmth less pervasive. The soft, shimmering outlines of the ancient whispering trees that ringed their valley, usually vibrant with their gentle shifting colors, were muted, almost grayscale against the inky sky. A pang of worry tightened her chest, but it was quickly replaced by determination. She had to go. For Oakhaven. For the Whis. Barnaby sat patiently by the door, his tail a barely perceptible twitch of anticipation. As Elara unlatched the sturdy oak door, a breath of cooler air, laden with the scent of damp earth and fading pine, swept into the cottage. The whispers outside, though still a tangled chorus, felt less urgent now, as if sensing her intent, shifting to a quieter, more hopeful murmur. They parted for her, a path of soft sound leading her towards the narrow winding track that led into the whispering woods. Stepping out, Elara felt the cool, dew-kissed grass beneath her bare feet. She took one last look back at her home, a silent promise made to the sleeping valley. Then, with Barnaby scampering ahead, a tiny, agile shadow, she turned her face towards the deeper woods. The elder Wiss's pulse, which had been a distant thrum, now resonated directly in her heart, a living compass pulling her onward. The initial stretch of the path was familiar, bordered by towering moss oaks and the intricate lacework of moonvines. Usually, this section was alive with the tiny flitting lights of dreamweavers, their soft bioluminescence creating pathways through the darkness, and the cheerful chirps of twig sprites hiding among the leaves. Tonight, however, an unnerving quiet prevailed. The dreamweavers were sparse, their lights faint, almost hesitant. The twig sprites were silent, their usual mischievous rustling replaced by an eerie stillness. Even the moss oaks, whose ancient bark usually hummed with a gentle living energy, felt cool and unresponsive to her touch. Barnaby, usually prone to darting after phantom scents and rustling leaves, stuck close to her heels, his small nose twitching nervously. He let out a soft whine, nudging her hand. "I feel it too, little one," Elara murmured, her voice a soft caress in the silence. She reached for the whispering lantern in her satchel, giving it a gentle tap. It pulsed once, a soft emerald glow blossoming from its core, then settled into a steady, comforting hum, casting a small circle of magic-infused light around them. The shadows seemed to recoil slightly from its gentle radiance. As they ventured deeper, the changes became more pronounced. The vibrant, multi-hued fungi that usually clung to the decaying logs, glowing with their own inner light, were dim and faded, their colors leached away. The streams, which always burbled with a melodic whisper as they flowed over moss-covered stones, were sluggish, their voices reduced to a barely audible gurgle, as if struggling to speak. The air itself felt heavier, almost thick with an absence, a hollowness where the vibrant living magic of the woods should have been. Elara knelt beside a patch of what should have been glimmer fern, its fronds usually shimmering with iridescent dew. Tonight, they were dull, brittle and brown, their magic utterly gone. She touched one, and it crumbled to dust beneath her fingertips. A wave of profound sadness washed over her. This was more than just fading, it was dying. The elder Wiss's pulse now felt like a desperate throb, pulling her off the main path and deeper into a less trodden part of the woods. Here, the trees grew denser, their branches intertwined overhead, forming a perpetual twilight even in the brightest day. Tonight, it was absolute darkness, broken only by the soft glow of her lantern. The whispers which had guided her from Oakhaven were now almost entirely gone, replaced by a profound, heavy silence that pressed in on her from all sides. It was the sound of magic holding its breath, or perhaps simply ceasing to breathe. Suddenly, Barnaby let out a sharp, surprised yip. He had darted ahead, his keen senses picking up something Elara hadn't yet perceived. She hurried after him, her heart quickening. He was standing beside a colossal, ancient willow heart tree, its gnarled branches usually weeping streams of shimmering life-giving sap. Tonight, the sap was still, hardened like amber, and the willow heart's leaves, usually a vibrant weeping emerald, were curled and brittle, a sickly yellow-brown. But it wasn't the tree that had alarmed Barnaby. Clinging to its bark, barely visible in the dim light, was a creature Elara had only ever seen in illustrations in the ancient lore books of the Whisperers. It was a moon moth sprite, no bigger than her thumb, its delicate wings usually glowing with a soft ethereal lunar light. This one, however, was pale, almost translucent, its wings dull and listless. It clung to the bark, shivering despite the mild air, its large luminous eyes, usually bright with curiosity, now wide with fear and exhaustion. "Oh, you poor thing," Elara whispered, kneeling gently. She extended a hand, palm up, towards the sprite. Barnaby, sensing she meant no harm, settled beside her, his small body vibrating with concern. The moon moth sprite, at first wary, slowly unfurled. One fragile wing, revealing a tiny intricate pattern that usually pulsed with magic. Now it was just a faint etching. "What troubles you, little one?" Elara asked, her voice soft and soothing. The moon moth sprite trembled, its antennae quivering. It pointed a tiny, almost invisible finger-like appendage towards a deeper part of the woods, a direction even darker and more silent than their current location. "Then," it whispered, its voice a faint chime, barely audible, the stillness, it grows. The light, it goes. Taken. Away. From the heart. It trailed off, shivering violently, its fragile form seeming to shrink further. Elara carefully cupped her hands, and the moon moth sprite, with a last desperate flutter, settled into her palm. It was so light, so utterly drained. She remembered the river stone in her satchel. Carefully she drew it out, its cool, smooth surface a small comfort. She placed the stone beside the sprite, willing a fraction of Oakhaven's calming magic into the little creature. Slowly, miraculously, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer returned to the sprite's wings. It let out a soft, grateful sigh, its eyes flickering with a tiny spark of renewed hope. "Thank you, little friend," Elara whispered. "You are very brave." She placed the sprite gently on a healthy patch of moss near the willowheart's roots, hoping the residual magic from the stone would give it strength. The sprite looked up at her, its gaze filled with gratitude, then pointed again, more firmly, towards the deeper darkness. "Follow the silence," it chimed, a little stronger this time, "where the whispers end." Elara understood. The elder Whis's pulse was guiding her to the source of the problem, and the moon moth sprite had confirmed it was where the magic had completely vanished. With a renewed sense of urgency, she rose. Barnaby nudged her, then trotted ahead, his senses now singularly focused, following the moon moth sprite's cryptic instruction. The path grew steeper, winding through a tangle of ancient roots that seemed to writhe like sleeping serpents. The air became noticeably colder, a chill that had nothing to do with the night air, but felt like the cold breath of absence itself. The whispering lantern, usually so vibrant, seemed to dim slightly here, as if struggling to draw magic from the impoverished air. They stumbled upon a small clearing, one Elara had never seen before. It was circular, defined by standing stones, ancient and covered in faded runes. In the center, where there should have been a vibrant pool fed by an underground spring, there was only a dry, cracked basin. The stones, usually humming with latent energy, were utterly silent, cold, and unresponsive to her touch. This was where the whispers truly ended. Barnaby let out a low growl, his hackles rising slightly. His eyes, usually friendly and curious, were narrowed, fixed on something Elara couldn't quite make out in the gloom. She tapped the whispering lantern, coaxing a stronger glow from it. Its light stretched forward, illuminating the far side of the clearing. There, nestled among the silent stones, was a structure Elara couldn't fathom. It was made of something dark and unyielding, like petrified night. It resembled a massive, thorny, coiled vine, but it was not living. It pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible darkness, a countermagic that seemed to devour the very light of her lantern. From its core, thin, shimmering tendrils of shadow spread out, snaking across the ground, reaching towards the silent stones and the withered trees beyond. As these tendrils touched the ancient runes on the stones, Elara could almost see the faint glow of the stone's inherent magic dim and vanish, sucked into the shadowy tendrils. This was it. This was the source of the draining. It wasn't just fading, it was being actively consumed. The elder Whis's pulse in her heart was now a frantic, hammering beat, not just a plea, but a warning. Barnaby whimpered, pressing himself against her leg. He pointed his nose towards the thorny structure, then back towards the silent, dry pool. Elara looked closer at the pool. The ground was not merely cracked, it was brittle, almost crystalline, as if all moisture, all life, had been utterly desiccated from it. And in the very center of the dry basin, where the spring should have flowed, there was a small circular depression, perfectly smooth and polished. It was as if something had rested there for a very long time, something that had drawn the life from the very earth beneath it. Then, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the ground. It wasn't an earthquake, but something else. Something rhythmic. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It was deep, resonant, and it seemed to emanate from beneath the coiled, thorny structure. The shadowy tendrils pulsed in time with it, drawing more fiercely at the ancient magic of the stones. Elara's mind raced. What was this thing? What was it doing? And how could she, a simple whisperer, possibly stop it? She felt a prickle of fear, a cold dread that seeped into her bones. But then she remembered the moon moth sprite, the silent trees, the dimming hearthlight in Oakhaven. She remembered the desperate pulse of the elder Whis. She had to try. She took a cautious step forward, her hand instinctively going to the cool river stone in her satchel, drawing comfort from its steady presence. Barnaby, though still wary, kept pace beside her, his small body a warm, reassuring weight against her leg. As they moved closer, the air grew heavier, thick with a strange metallic scent, like old iron and dying leaves. The thorny structure seemed to grow larger, its dark energy more palpable, radiating cold. Suddenly a low guttural sound reverberated from the darkest part of the clearing, from beneath the coiled, dark structure itself. It wasn't a growl, but a deep, sorrowful moan, imbued with a profound weariness. And then, from the shadows directly behind the dark structure, a pair of luminous emerald eyes, ancient and filled with pain, slowly opened. They were enormous, the eyes of something vast and powerful, yet deeply, terribly hurt. The sound came again, a groan that seemed to shake the very earth beneath Elara's feet. The eyes belonged to an enormous creature, so vast it seemed to blend with the very earth and stone around it. It was a stone sentinel, one of the ancient guardians of the Whispering Woods, its body a tapestry of moss, lichen, and living rock. Elara had heard tales of them, but never imagined seeing one. This sentinel was not standing guard, however. It was slumped, almost buried beneath the thorny, consuming structure, its massive limbs petrified in agony, its immense strength seemingly drained. The dark tendrils from the coiled structure were deeply embedded in its stony hide, pulsating as they siphoned away its very life force, its ancient magic. The sentinel tried to speak, its stony mouth moving with immense effort. A sound like grinding boulders emerged, a whisper that was almost a roar. The siphon. It awakens, draws, life, from the Whis. Its voice, though powerful, was laced with utter exhaustion, fading with each word. Its emerald eyes flickered, dimming like dying embers. Elara stared, her heart sinking. The siphon. This dark, coiling thing was actively draining the magic, not just from the trees and the streams, but from the very guardians of the woods, from the ancient heart of the Whis itself. The silent, dry pool, the withered glimmer fern, the dimming hearthlight, it all made terrible, terrifying sense. The elder Whis's frantic pulse was not just a plea for help, but a desperate warning against this insidious, consuming force. She looked at the stone sentinel, its eyes pleading with her, its immense body held captive by the dark tendrils. She looked at the siphon, its malevolent presence pulsing rhythmically, drawing more and more power. The task ahead felt immense, almost impossible for a single whisperer and her tiny companion. But as she looked from the ancient suffering guardian to the hungry dark structure, a different kind of pulse joined the elder Whis's plea in her heart. A spark of defiance, a growing ember of resolve. She had to find a way to stop it before the Whispering Woods and Oakhaven itself fell silent forever. Elara took a deep, shuddering breath, the chill of the siphon's draining presence seeping into her bones. Pip, sensing her resolve, nudged her hand with his soft muzzle, a silent promise of support. This wasn't a task she could simply whisper away, nor one she could ignore. The elder Whis's plea, a raw, primal cry of the forest itself, resonated within her. "We can't fight it head-on, Pip," Elara murmured, her voice barely a breath. "Not yet. We need to understand it. We need to know how to stop it." Her gaze flickered to the suffering elder Whis, its form a testament to the siphon's insidious power. The elder Whis. It spoke of ancient ways, forgotten knowledge. Pip chittered, tugging gently at her sleeve, pointing a tiny claw towards a faint shimmer, just beyond the siphon's pulsing perimeter. It was a distortion in the air, a ripple in the fabric of the woods, almost imperceptible. What is it, Pip? Elara squinted, focusing her whispering senses. She felt a faint echo, a residual trace of the elder Wiss's energy, not fully absorbed by the siphon. It was like a lingering scent, a whisper on the wind that promised direction. It's a path, or a memory of one. Carefully, Elara began to move, her steps light and deliberate. The ground beneath them felt colder, harder, less yielding here. The vibrant mosses and glowing fungi that usually carpeted the forest floor were dull, almost grayed, as if their light had been stolen. The air itself felt thin, hushed, the normal symphony of the forest reduced to a muted hum. Pip stayed close, his usually bright eyes narrowed, constantly scanning their surroundings. They skirted the edge of the siphon's immediate reach, following the faint shimmer. It led them deeper into a part of the whispering woods Elara had never ventured before. This was not the familiar sun-dappled groves of her childhood, but an older, wilder expanse where trees grew impossibly tall, their ancient limbs draped with hanging moss that swayed like mournful banners. The air here was heavy with the scent of damp earth and forgotten time. The shimmer eventually coalesced into a nearly invisible path, winding between gnarled roots that rose like petrified serpents from the forest floor. It was as if the elder Whis, even in its weakened state, had left a breadcrumb trail of its own fading essence. "It leads somewhere deep," Elara whispered, the words catching in her throat as she realized the path was descending. They were moving into a hollow, a natural depression in the earth, where the canopy overhead grew so thick that only slivers of twilight pierced through, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. As they descended, the faint echo of the elder Whis grew stronger, though it was tinged with sorrow. Elara felt a deeper connection, not just to the pain but to fragmented images flashing in her mind, ancient glyphs carved into stone, the slow, deliberate work of hands long turned to dust, a sense of immense power being carefully contained. The path ended abruptly at the mouth of a cave, almost entirely hidden by a curtain of cascading vines. The entrance was not a crude tear in the earth, but a perfectly arched doorway, clearly shaped by intelligent hands, though millennia of growth had sought to reclaim it. Ancient runes, barely visible beneath layers of lichen and dust, were etched into the stone archway. "A hidden place," Elara breathed, her fingers tracing the cold stone. "A sanctuary, perhaps?" Pip, usually hesitant about dark, enclosed spaces, seemed less fearful here. He sniffed at the runes, then chittered excitedly, pointing inside. A faint, almost imperceptible luminescence pulsed from within, a soft, warm glow that stood in stark contrast to the siphon's cold hum. Taking another fortifying breath, Elara pushed aside the vines and stepped into the darkness, Pip scampering in ahead. The air inside was still, cool, and smelled faintly of earth and old paper. As her eyes adjusted, the luminescence grew clearer. It emanated from within the cave itself, from glowing crystals embedded in the walls, and from a series of moss-covered shelves lining the rough-hewn chamber. This was no ordinary cave. It was an ancient library, a forgotten archive of the whispering woods. Dust motes danced in the soft light, illuminating rows upon rows of scrolls, tablets, and bound volumes made from dried leaves, pressed bark, and something that felt like petrified moss. Many were crumbling, their wisdom lost to time, but others seemed remarkably preserved, protected by the cave's stable, cool environment, and perhaps a lingering enchantment. Elara's heart pounded. This was what the elder Whis meant. This was the ancient knowledge. "Pip, be careful," she murmured, stepping deeper into the chamber. Her whisperer senses flared, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of silent stories contained within these walls. Each scroll, each tablet, hummed with a faint resonance, a memory of the hands that had created it, the voices that had once read its words. She approached a central pedestal where a single large tome rested, open to a page covered in elegant flowing script. Its pages were made of a substance like polished wood, incredibly thin and flexible. The script, though ancient, felt familiar, almost singing to her whisperer senses. It was the language of the woods itself, a language she instinctively understood, not with her mind, but with her spirit. The tome was titled, Whis Chronicle of the Verdant Heartache and Siwandea. As Elara leaned closer, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper brushed her ear, not in words, but in a feeling. "Listen, child. Remember." It was the elder Whis, a final fading echo, guiding her even now. She began to read, her fingers gently tracing the ancient glyphs. The chronicle spoke of the earliest days of the Whispering Woods, when magic flowed freely, unbound and untamed. It detailed the creation of the elder Whis, not as a single entity, but as a collective consciousness, the living spirit of the entire forest, woven from the deepest roots and the highest leaves. It was a guardian, a repository of life, a song of vibrant growth. Then, the chronicle spoke of a time of imbalance. It described ancient beings, not malicious by nature, but driven by a rigid desire for order and control. They were called the Stillness Keepers, and they saw the wild, chaotic magic of the Whispering Woods as a threat to their carefully constructed harmony. They believed that true peace lay in uniformity, in the quieting of all discordant voices, all unpredictable energies. They sought to prune the wild growth of magic, to channel it, to still its vibrant song into a single predictable hum, Elara read, her eyes widening. They believed that by containing the wood's overflowing spirit, they could bring everlasting calm, but they mistook stillness for peace, and silence for serenity. The chronicle then described the creation of the siphon. It wasn't an act of outright malice, but a desperate, misguided attempt by the Stillness Keepers to bring the Whispering Woods into alignment with their vision of order. They built a grand artifact, a magnificent crystal structure designed to draw in the excess magic, to filter out the cacophony and leave only the pure essence behind. But they underestimated the sheer vitality of the woods, the inherent need for wildness, for change, for life in all its forms. The siphon, once activated, did not simply filter. It devoured. It silenced. It drained the very life force, the song, the whispers of the woods. The elder Whis in its vastness felt the impact first and most profoundly. It began to wither, its voice dimming, its connection to the forest frayed. The Stillness Keepers, the chronicle noted with a sorrowful tone, eventually realized their terrible mistake. They saw the life draining from the woods, the vibrant colors fading, the sounds muting. But by then, the siphon had grown too powerful. It had taken on a life of its own, a relentless hunger. A constant pulse, echoing the Stillness Keepers' initial desire for ultimate control, but amplified to a monstrous degree. They tried to stop it, to dismantle their own creation, but it was too late. The siphon had become an unquenchable thirst, and the elder Whis was its primary source. The last entry in that section spoke of their desperate attempt to contain the siphon's power, to seal it away, but even that failed fully. Instead, they managed only to slow its consumption, to buy the wood's time, to leave behind clues for a future generation. The heart of the siphon is not stone but a wound, Elara read aloud, her voice trembling. A wound in the fabric of the world, caused by a yearning for absolute order. To heal it, one must reawaken the chaotic pulse, the symphony of life it seeks to silence. The key lies not in destruction, but in resonance. Pip, who had been curiously sniffing at a pile of dusty scrolls, suddenly chittered, his ears twitching. He pointed a tiny claw at the diagram, etched into the margin of the chronicle. It showed a complex array of symbols surrounding a central image, a shimmering, multifaceted crystal, radiating vibrant colors. Beneath it the words, P, the Songstone of Ethel. Nun, of T. The Songstone of Ethel, Elara repeated, her brow furrowed. What is that? She flipped through the tome, searching for more information. The chronicle described the Songstone as a legendary artifact, not created by the Stillness Keepers, but a natural formation, a crystal imbued with the pure, untamed essence of the wood's original magic. It was said to hum with 1,000 voices, to resonate with every living thing, a perfect counterpoint to the siphon's silence. Only the Songstone, when brought into resonance with the elder Whis' true voice, can mend the wound, but its location is lost, sealed away by the Stillness Keepers in their final desperate act, hoping to keep it safe from the siphon's reach, yet inadvertently hiding it from those who would use it for good. A wave of despair washed over Elara. Lost? After all this, the key was lost. But then another page caught her eye, almost hidden beneath a folded corner. It was a faint hand-drawn map, almost entirely faded, but with a few key landmarks still discernible. It showed a winding river, a series of 3 ancient standing stones, and then a distinctive grove of luminous silver-leaf trees. And at the heart of that grove, a single, boulder mark, almost like a star. The Stillness Keepers, in their retreat, erected protective wards around the Songstone's resting place. Only one whose heart resonates with the true song of the woods, one who carries its whispers, may pass the threshold. Elara traced the map with her finger. The river, the standing stones, she knew them. They were deep within the Whispering Woods, far from Oakhaven, in a region rarely visited, often spoken of in hushed tones as the Echoing Depths. It was a place where the ancient magic was said to linger most powerfully, a place where even the most seasoned trackers sometimes lost their way. "Pip," Elara said, her voice filled with a renewed sense of purpose, "we have a mission. We need to find the Songstone of Athel." Pip chittered, bouncing on his tiny feet, his curiosity now focused entirely on the adventure ahead. They left the ancient library, Elara carefully refolding the map and tucking it into a pouch at her waist. The path back to the familiar parts of the woods felt different now. The air, though still carrying the siphon's subtle chill, also held the promise of hope, a faint melody that resonated with the Songstone's memory. As they emerged from the hidden cave, the forest seemed to greet them with a gentle rustle of leaves, a subtle shift in the breeze. The path to the Echoing Depths lay to the north, a journey that would take them days, perhaps even weeks, through dense thickets and over winding hills. Their first challenge came quickly. The path, once clear, became overgrown. Twisted brambles, thorny and resilient, blocked their way, their tendrils laced with a faint prickling magic that sought to deter them. This wasn't natural overgrowth. It felt like a deliberate barrier. "These aren't just plants," Elara murmured, reaching out with her whisperer senses. She felt a subtle pushback, a low hum of protective energy woven into the thorns. It was a remnant of the Stillness Keeper's wards, designed to guard the path to deeper, more powerful magic, even if inadvertently. She closed her eyes, focusing. Instead of trying to force her way through, she listened. She felt the life force within the brambles, not hostile, but cautious, defensive. "You are protecting a path, not harming it," she whispered to them. Not with words, but with a gentle pulse of her own resonant magic. "They seek to heal, not to wound. We walk with the woods, not against it." "Oh, Perry." Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the brambles began to shift. A narrow opening just wide enough for Elara and Pip appeared in the dense wall of thorns, the branches curling back as if in welcome. Elara smiled, a flicker of pride warming her. Her gift wasn't just for listening, it was for understanding, for finding harmony. They pressed on, the forest growing wilder with every step. The trees here were even grander, their bark gnarled and ancient, their leaves a deeper, richer green. Strange, luminous fungi dotted the forest floor, casting an ethereal glow that lit their way as twilight deepened. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, punctuated by the sweet perfume of night-blooming flowers. Pip, ever vigilant, suddenly froze. His tiny nose twitched, and his ears swiveled, pointing towards a cluster of ancient, twisted oaks. Elara stopped, listening. She heard it too, a low, mournful sigh, like the wind trapped in hollow branches. "What is it, Pip?" she whispered, drawing closer to the trees. As they approached, the sigh grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't the wind. It was a voice, a chorus of voices, ancient and sorrowful. From between the gnarled roots of the oldest oak, a face began to emerge, formed from the very wood and moss, a venerable, weathered countenance with eyes like pools of dark amber. It was a tree spirit, one of the ancient guardians of the deeper woods, rarely seen by mortal eyes. Its presence radiated immense age and a profound sadness. "Little whisperer," the tree spirit rumbled, its voice like the creaking of old timber, "you venture far from sunlit paths. The siphon's hunger casts a long shadow even here." Elara bowed her head respectfully. "Elder spirit, we seek the Songstone of Athel." The chronicle spoke of it. "And the elder Whis guided us to its knowledge. We believe it is the only way to stop the siphon." The tree spirit's amber eyes seemed to gaze into Elara's very soul. The Songstone, a potent magic, hidden for millennia by the Stillness Keepers, who in their folly, thought to protect it from the very darkness they created. They built a grand ward around its resting place, a barrier of pure stillness, designed to silence all who would approach with unbridled magic. The chronicle mentioned wards, Elara said, but also that one whose heart resonates with the true song of the woods may pass. Indeed, the tree spirit sighed. But the song of the woods is not a simple melody. It is a symphony of joy and sorrow, of life and death, of growth and decay. Many have tried to pass, drawn by curiosity or ambition, but few truly understand the song. Their own internal discord has always been their undoing. How do we pass? Elara asked, a knot of apprehension forming in her stomach. The tree spirit extended a branch, its leaves glowing faintly. The ward of stillness does not allow falsehoods nor half-truths. It will test your resonance, your connection to the deepest truth of the woods. You must prove that your heart sings with its wild, unpredictable rhythm, not with the ordered, contained hum of the stillness keepers. Pip chittered nervously, tugging Elara's sleeve. He seemed to sense the immense power emanating from the tree spirit, and the gravity of its words. The path to the songstone, the tree spirit continued, lies beyond the whispering falls, through the sunken fen, and finally to the grove of silverleaf, where the ward stands. Along the way you will encounter echoes of the stillness keepers' other works, remnants of their attempts to impose order. They are not malicious, but they are tests. Show them the true song, and they will yield. Echoes? Elara questioned. Places where they sought to organize the flow of magic, to purify it, the tree spirit explained. Failing, they left behind residues of their intent. The Whispering Falls, for example, once flowed with 1,000 voices. They sought to silence all but one, creating a single monotone hum. You must restore its symphony. Elara felt a thrill of challenge mingled with trepidation. This wasn't just about finding an object. It was about understanding and healing the very magic of the woods. We will try, Elara promised, her voice firm. We will restore the song. The tree spirit nodded, its amber eyes softening. Then may the whispers guide you, little one. The woods remembers its true voice and longs to sing it once more. With a final resonant sigh, its face receded back into the gnarled bark, leaving only the ancient oak behind. Elara and Pip continued their journey, the tree spirit's words echoing in her mind. The path grew steeper, winding upwards towards the source of a distant rushing sound, the Whispering Falls. As they drew closer, the sound shifted. It was indeed a waterfall, but instead of the usual roar and spray, there was a strange uniform hum. A single droning note, constant and unchanging. It felt wrong. The air around the falls felt heavy, devoid of the usual vibrant mist and the refreshing scent of damp earth. They found the falls tumbling from a sheer cliff face into a deep, clear pool below. But the water itself was peculiar. It flowed with an unnatural smoothness, each droplet perfectly aligned, each ripple precisely measured. The trees surrounding the falls were still, their leaves unmoving, as if held in perpetual suspension. This was the stillness keeper's work, Elara realized. They had imposed order on the very flow of water, silencing its natural chaotic symphony. It's like they ironed out the waterfall, Pip chittered, his tiny whiskers twitching in distaste. He seemed to feel the unnaturalness of it keenly. Elara approached the edge of the pool, feeling the dull, oppressive magic emanating from the water. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her whisperer senses, trying to find the lost voices within the water. She felt them, faint and suppressed, like 1,000 tiny murmurs trapped beneath a heavy blanket. The joyous splash of a fish, the gurgle of a hidden spring, the whisper of wind through the spray, all muted to a single monotonous drone. This was her test. She had to restore the symphony. She extended her hands towards the water, palms open. She didn't try to force anything. Instead, she focused on listening more deeply than she ever had before. She listened for the tiny forgotten variations, the subtle shifts in current, the individual life within each drop of water. She began to hum, a soft, resonant note, letting her own whisperer magic flow, not as a command, but as an invitation. Zing. Little currents, she whispered, her voice barely audible but carrying the weight of her intent. Sing your own song. Remember your joy. Wadanhanda. Nishandande. Patiwatapakyan. A faint tremor ran through the water. The single hum wavered. Elara deepened her connection, visualizing the myriad voices, the countless natural sounds that made up a healthy waterfall. She poured her own vibrant, chaotic energy, her own love for the wildness of the woods, into the water. Slowly, incredibly slowly, the water began to change. A single tiny splash broke the perfect surface of the pool. Then, another. A faint gurgle rose from beneath the main stream. The drone began to crack, allowing individual notes to emerge. The gentle plink of a drop hitting a leaf, the soft rush of water over smooth stone, the playful swirl of a miniature eddy. As Elara continued to hum, her voice swelling with the returning life of the falls, the changes accelerated. The water began to churn with a natural, healthy chaos. Mist rose, cool and refreshing, carrying the scent of rich earth and vibrant life. The trees around the falls rustled their leaves, as if waking from a long slumber, and a chorus of birdsong erupted from their branches. The monotonous hum was gone, replaced by the glorious multi-layered symphony of a living waterfall. It roared and whispered, splashed and gurgled, 1,000 voices harmonizing in a chaotic, beautiful song. Elara opened her eyes, breathless. The falls shimmered, alive and vibrant. Pip chittered with delight, scampering to the edge of the pool and playfully batting at the returning spray. "We did it, Pip," Elara whispered, a smile spreading across her face. "We helped it remember its song." The air here now felt invigorating, charged with renewed magic. A faint, glowing path materialized from the base of the falls, leading them onwards, deeper into the echoing depths. The path was clear, as if the restored falls had blessed their journey. Their next destination, according to the map and the tree spirit, was the sunken fen. The forest around them grew denser, the trees cloaked in thick velvety moss, their branches interwoven so tightly that they formed a perpetual twilight beneath. Strange luminous flowers bloomed in the undergrowth, their petals glowing with soft, otherworldly light. The ground grew softer, wetter, as they approached the fen. The air became heavy with the scent of damp soil and sweet, decaying vegetation. Pip, usually nimble, found his paws sinking into the boggy earth, forcing Elara to carry him on her shoulder. The sunken fen was a vast expanse of shimmering, dark water, dotted with ancient skeletal trees that reached like grasping fingers towards the sky. Patches of luminous moss floated on the surface, casting an eerie green glow. The stillness here was profound, not the cold, dead stillness of the siphon, but a heavy, watchful silence, as if the fen itself held its breath. Elara felt it immediately, another echo of the stillness keepers. This was a place where they had tried to purify the raw elemental magic of the swamp, to drain its chaotic life and leave only a pristine, unchanging pool. But the fen in its wildness had resisted, becoming a place of stagnation rather than purity, holding on to its life with a grim, defiant silence. "This is a place of forgotten voices, of magic held captive by its own despair," Elara sensed, as she cautiously stepped onto a mossy hummock. The water around them seemed to ripple with unseen currents, though the surface remained unnervingly still. "What do we do here, Elara?" Pip whispered, his voice hushed by the oppressive quiet. Elara closed her eyes again, reaching out. She felt a tangle of emotions, ancient sorrow, deep-seated resentment, a longing for release. The fen wasn't trying to harm them, but it was trapped in its own stillness, unable to move forward. The stillness keepers had tried to cleanse it, but had instead merely bound its wild, untamed spirit. "You are not still, fen," Elara whispered, her voice resonating with a gentle, flowing energy. "Pure life, ever-changing, ever-eaten, ever-born. Your waters cleanse, they do not merely hold. Nesinu, Otei." She walked to the edge of the deepest part of the fen, where the water was darkest and most still. Taking a deep breath, she extended her hands, focusing her whisperer magic. She reached for the suppressed currents, the hidden life beneath the surface. She began to sing, a low melodic hum, a song of gentle movement, of cleansing rain, of flowing rivers. As she sang, the still surface of the fen began to stir. Tiny bubbles rose from the depths, bursting silently. The luminous moss patches began to drift, slowly at first, then with increasing purpose, forming gentle whirlpools and patterns. The skeletal trees, once seemingly barren, sprouted tiny, glowing buds, their branches shimmering with renewed life. The air shifted, growing fresher, carrying the scent of blooming water lilies and newly turned earth. The heavy silence lifted, replaced by the gentle plop of water, the rustle of reeds, the croaking of unseen frogs, and the soft buzz of insects. The fen was waking up, its stagnant magic flowing once more. The dark waters shimmered, revealing glimpses of luminous fish darting beneath the surface. A faint, almost imperceptible current began to draw the moss patches towards a central point in the fen, revealing a small, stony island that had been hidden beneath the stillness. On the island, a single ancient stone stood, covered in the same elegant, flowing script Elara had seen in the chronicle. It was a marker, a guide. It worked, Elara. Pip squeaked, delighted as he watched the fen come alive. Elara smiled, her heart full. She had helped the fen remember its purpose, to be a place of vibrant, if sometimes murky, life. The magic here, once stifled, now flowed freely, a testament to the wood's enduring power. A new path, shimmering with a soft green light, appeared, leading directly across the now gentle currents of the fen, straight to the marker stone. They carefully crossed the fen, a glowing path supporting their weight. Reaching the stone, Elara traced the script. It was a simple message, echoing the chronicle's words. T. Silverleaf waits. Let your heart sing true. Wananan. Ein. The final leg of their journey lay ahead, the grove of Silverleaf. The tree spirit's words about the Stillness Keeper's grand ward, designed to silence all who approached with unbridled magic, weighed on her. But after restoring the Whispering Falls and the sunken fen, Elara felt a growing confidence. Her connection to the woods, to its wild, untamed magic, was stronger than ever. She understood now that the woods wasn't just a place of beauty. It was a living, breathing entity, with its own song, its own rhythm, its own fierce, untamed heart. And she, Elara, was a part of that song. The path from the fen led them upwards again, through a shimmering tunnel of ancient trees whose leaves were a breathtaking silver, reflecting the twilight like 1,000 tiny mirrors. The air here was cool and sweet, filled with a faint, musical hum. This was a sacred place, imbued with powerful magic. And then, they saw it. At the heart of the grove, surrounded by the luminous silver-leaf trees, stood a vast, shimmering barrier. It wasn't a physical wall, but a ripple in the air, a dome of pure, silent energy that distorted the light and muted all sound. The silver-leaf leaves around it, usually vibrant, were dull, almost gray at its edges, their song suppressed by its proximity. This was the Grand Ward, the Stillness Keeper's final attempt to contain the Songstone, to separate it from the chaotic symphony of the woods. It pulsed with an almost imperceptible thrum, a silent, powerful force designed to repel any magic that wasn't perfectly ordered, perfectly still. Pip whimpered, pressing himself against Elara's leg. Even from a distance, the ward felt oppressive, a heavy blanket of silence. Elara felt its cold touch, trying to quiet her own internal hum, to still the vibrant song within her. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. This was the ultimate test. She had to prove that her heart truly sang with the woods, not with the sterile order of the Stillness Keepers. She had to embrace the chaos, the life, the whispers that made the woods whole. Drawing closer, she could see faint, swirling patterns within the shimmering dome, like trapped smoke. These were the residues of magic, the life force of the woods, trying to penetrate the barrier, but constantly being pushed back, silenced, almost absorbed. Fey Ward does not allow falsehoods, nor half-truths, the tree spirit's words echoed in her mind. Kit will test your resonance, your connection to the deepest truth of the woods. Aunmaishi. Elara stood before the shimmering barrier, her hands trembling slightly. She closed her eyes, and instead of pushing against the ward, she opened herself to it. She let her whisperer senses expand, not just to the ward but to the entire grove, to the silver-leaf trees, to the earth beneath her feet, to the sky above. She listened to the hum of the world, the chaotic, beautiful symphony of life. She listened to the faint, struggling whispers of the elder Whis, a distant echo from the siphon. She listened to the restored song of the Whispering Falls, the vibrant flow of the sunken fen. She felt the pulse of Oakhaven, the gentle breathing of the creatures in the woods, the very growth of the smallest blade of grass. And then, she began to sing. Not with words, but with a pure resonant hum that came from the deepest part of her being, a melody woven from all the whispers she had ever heard, all the life she had ever felt. It was a song of wildness, of untamed growth, a vibrant chaos of the endless, beautiful cycle of the woods. It was the true song of the whispering woods, sung through a human heart. As she sang, a faint shimmer began to emanate from her, a soft golden light that pulsed in time with her song. It was not a force, but an invitation, a resonance. The oppressive silence of the ward began to waver, its rigid structure vibrating under the gentle assault of pure untamed life. The swirling patterns within the dome changed. They no longer struggled against the barrier, but began to move with Ilara's song, intertwining, finding harmony. The silverleaf leaves around them, once dull, began to glow with renewed brilliance, their own silent song joining hers, amplifying the resonance. Pip, sensing the shift, chittered excitedly, his fur bristling with energy. He added his own tiny high-pitched squeaks to Ilara's song, a joyful counter-melody. The shimmering dome began to thin, almost dissolving. It was not breaking, but yielding, melting away before the undeniable truth of the wood's song. The still, ordered magic of the ward was being reabsorbed, not destroyed, but returned to the chaotic flow from which it had originally been drawn. Finally, with a soft, almost inaudible sigh, the last vestiges of the ward faded, vanishing like morning mist. The air that rushed in was cool and sweet, rich with the scent of ancient magic and the vibrant hum of countless silverleaf trees. Before them, at the heart of the grove, rested a magnificent sight. It was a crystal, truly multifaceted, larger than Ilara's head, suspended within a cradle of glowing silverleaf roots. It pulsed with an inner light, shifting through all the colors of the rainbow, each facet catching and refracting the light in a dizzying display. And from its core, Ilara felt it, not a single note but a chorus, 1,000 voices singing in perfect chaotic harmony. This was the Songstone of Ethel. Its presence alone filled the grove with an overwhelming sense of life and power, a vibrant counterpoint to the siphon's draining silence. Ilara felt a rush of awe, of wonder, of profound hope. They had found it. The key to stopping the siphon, the heart of the wood's true song. But as she reached out a trembling hand towards the Songstone, a new voice, cold and sharp, cut through the joyous hum of the grove. So, the little whisperer has found her way to our forgotten treasure. From the shadows beneath the towering silverleaf trees, figures began to emerge. They were tall and slender, cloaked in robes the color of deep shadow, their faces obscured by hoods. They moved with a silent, unnatural grace, their presence radiating a cold, unnerving stillness that made the very air around them feel devoid of warmth. These were not the ancient stillness keepers, long passed into history, but their inheritors, their guardians, their silent watchers. They were the ones who had kept the ward intact for millennia, waiting, watching. And they had been drawn by the very song Ilara had used to dismantle their protection. "You have awakened the Songstone," one of them rasped, their voice like dry leaves scraping against stone. "And for that, you will pay." Ilara instinctively stepped in front of Pip, her heart pounding, her hand hovering over the Songstone. She had found the key, but now, a new, immediate threat stood between her and her goal. The inheritors of stillness were here, and they would not easily surrender the power she had just liberated. The fight for the Whispering Woods was far from over. Ilara didn't hesitate. Gripping the Songstone, she held it aloft, and a wave of pure, resonant melody pulsed outwards. It wasn't a weapon, but a vibrant burst of life, a symphony of rustling leaves, babbling brooks, and the joyful chirps of unseen birds. The inheritors of stillness shrieked, their shadowy forms wavering as the sound, rich and full, enveloped them. They weren't being attacked, but rather, their very essence of silence was being overwhelmed by an irresistible, beautiful song. One by one their brittle forms dissolved like mist in the morning sun, not in pain, but as if gently released from a long quiet slumber. With their departure, the air shimmered. The Songstone, now glowing steadily, pulsed with a gentle rhythm, its music seeping into the earth and sky. Colors bloomed where shadows had lingered, new shoots unfurled, and the true whispering of the woods, the soft hum of life returned. Pip chirped, soaring around Ilara's head in a dance of pure delight. Ilara smiled, feeling the vibrant heartbeat of the forest resonate within her own chest. The Whispering Woods was safe, its melody restored, and its protector had finally brought back the song. As the first star twinkled above the now vibrant canopy, Ilara knew her journey had found its perfect, harmonious end.